In the matter of the people of the state of California versus Orenthal James Simpson, case number BA097.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you.
Taylor's getting her papers ready.
I feel like this is another one where I accidentally learned a bunch of stuff that was not what I was thinking I was going to learn, and it's going to be very complicated and I'm going to be wrong. So I just wanted to say to everyone that I'm not a scientist.
Taylor's not a scientist.
Yep.
Well, we'll figure,
yeah.
Yes, we'll figure this out.
Okay.
Welcome to Doomed to Fail. This is the podcast where we discuss two stories. No, we don't. We do one now. So we're going to discuss two stories twice a week about relationships that we're doomed to fail. I'm Farge, joined by Taylor.
Hi.
And these are totally separate days that we're talking.
It's Wednesday.
It's Wednesday.
Nobody
now.
cares. It's
Nobody
fine.
cares. Okay.
It's fine. Cool. So as I mentioned on Monday, I am super interested in those big shared volcano drinks that are potentially on fire. So let's put a pin in doing that together. If you have had a big flaming volcano drink, please send photos. I'd love to see and learn more about it.
Are you doing Vesuvius?
So not yet. We're
Okay.
gonna get there though. So I have some tangents that got me here. Of course, this one is one that also has 7,000 tangents, but we follow both with our podcast and myself, just a fun Instagram account called Dark Theme Reddit. So it's asking questions like, have you ever died? Have you ever seen anybody die? What's the craziest thing that ever happened to you at this point? So it's just fun little interesting stories. And one of them was, what is the worst event in human history? So I was reading through it, some of them were jokes, some of them were actual terrible things. But one thing that someone mentioned that I have never heard of is the Toba volcano. So I was going to research the Toba volcano, but it actually turned into a story about DNA, human genealogy, and how stupid racism is. Racism is serious because it's a real thing and it really happens, but racists, generally speaking, racists are dumb. It's dumb to be racist because race is so brand new in human history because human history is so old. So I'm going to do a series that it's going to be, I'm not going to do it one after the other because this would turn into an entirely different podcast, but it's actually going to be a 7-part series on volcanoes.
Whoa.
This is part 1. I'll tell you what they're going to be.
Part 1?
Well, part 1 is the Toba catastrophe theory from 74,000 years ago.
Okay.
So we're going way back. Way back. Then we'll do Mount Vesuvius. That was in 79. Then but obviously there's tons of stuff happened between 74,000 years ago and 79. But these are the ones that we know more about now. So then we'll do Mount Vesuvius. We'll do Tambora. That was in 1816. That's the one that when that one erupted, it was a year without a summer. They made everything really gloomy. And that's when Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein because everything was really gloomy and they had to see inside. There's also Krakatoa that happened in 1883. We know more about that because by then telegraphs were invented. But Krakatoa is the one where the sky all over the world turned orange, and that's when Edward Munch painted the Scream. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
And the sky looked like that in Europe because of Krakatoa in Indonesia. So because that's how world going over it is. Then we'll talk about Mount Pele. That was in 1902. That's one I know less about, but it had some crazy stories about just animals running and stuff. So I'll do that one. Number 6, Mount St. Helens in 1980. So that one happened the most recently in Washington State. And then for part 7, we'll talk about the future and what's going to happen when Yellowstone erupts because we're all going to die.
How does this have to do with genealogy and race?
Oh, we're going to get there.
Okay. I'm excited. This is unique, Taylor.
I know. Here we go. So part 1. Here's the book that I read twice to take notes. It's called When Humans Nearly Vanished by Donald R. Protherio. He's obviously a scientist. So that's this story about Mount Toba. I also, not randomly, I was listening to Dan Carlin's Amendum. So it's his short, kind of chatty podcast. And he did one called The Long Game. And he just talks about this concept of how old Earth is and how old humanity is and how little we know. Humans have been around for hundreds of thousands of years, and we know maybe 10,000 years of history from like bits of pottery, you know?
Yeah.
Like we know so very little, and we like imagine that like the world became worth knowing about when people could write it down, but like how do we know? You know, there's so much more
Wait, Dan
out there.
Carlin has another podcast?
He does like a shorter one where he like sometimes interviews people, sometimes he just like chats. Like this one, he's always like he's so he's the best. He's always like very apologetic. Like, well, you guys keep telling me that I should just like talk into the microphone, so here I am. And we're like, yeah, thank you. It's exactly what we want.
What's that called?
He's like, addendum, ADDEN, hardcore history, addendum is what it does.
Oh
Amend.
my
Now I
God.
lost the word,
All right, my
but it's
life
great.
is going to be taken over by this now.
But listen to the long game. I listened to that one twice as well. It's fantastic. But yeah, it's like the same. It's the same idea that we're going to get here that I've talked about before. That like, um, the the existential dread of knowing that most of history, the vast majority of history, is lost. You know.
Yeah.
So, so I did that, and then I watched some videos on YouTube just to like wrap my head around this. So one, but how did humans become the Earth's dominant species, and how many of species humans were there? So just I'll put those in. But also in one of the videos I watched, they said, so Dan obviously says Genghis Khan,
Cengiz.
right?
He
Genghis.
says
Okay, Dan
Cengiz.
says Dan says Genghis Khan. In this one I watched, they said Genghis, Han, whatever. It was terrible. I was like, I can't do this. Like, we need to like, it's very confusing. But one more thing that I wanted to mention, before I really go into this is I did make a cool like timeline of all of my episodes, and like they really definitely like lean 1500 and future into the future. The most recent one I did was the 63 of Jack Ruby. So I want to like fill in that big gap. But if I put this eruption of Toba 74,000 years ago on my timeline, you wouldn't be able to see anything. It's like an
Yeah, because
outlier
it
of
would be
outliers.
all the, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I put it at negative 500. And then I also was like, why don't we just say negative? Why are we doing this AD, BC, CE thing? And I discovered that there is an astronomical year numbering thing that people do, but it's based on different calendars. And anyway, I'm going to say negative from now on.
Yeah, go for
Okay,
it. Yeah.
great. So a little bit more about what Dan Carlin was saying and kind of what I'm going to get into is, you know, people have only existed for such a very small amount of time. And a term that I must have heard before, but just heard doing this research is paleoarchaeology. So we're talking like really like human archaeology, but like from a long time ago. And there's just so much that we don't know. And also like a lot of this does kind of like lead into racism and into people thinking that like some kinds of humans are better than other kinds of humans. Because you don't everyone wants to believe that they're like descendants of kings, but we're all probably descendants of people trying to fucking survive like we are,
Yeah.
you know? Um, so, and also like we talked about before, like there is no romantic past like trying to go back to. That's all a myth. Like there's just like people trying to survive for all of time. So it's just a lot thinking about how far away the past is and how far away the future is, and just like we're just such a small little blip in our time. But the TLDR of the Toba volcano, and everything that happened 74,000 years ago, is that all humans on Earth have the same ancestor. She was a woman who lived in Africa, between 150,000 and 200,000 years ago. So, for whatever happened, she was the one who, her family line is the one that survived and the one that continued, and we are all descendants of her.
Okay, can I ask questions?
Yes.
How can anybody know that?
Well, okay, I will get there. It's very complicated.
Okay, okay.
Okay.
Of course it's complicated.
So, have you done 23andMe?
No, because I want my great ancestors or whatever the down the line to be able to commit whatever crimes they want and not have it traced back.
No, I want mine to be able to be punished for their
Because
crimes.
because that's how we found this woman 250,000 years ago.
I know. So wait, I didn't even finish my TLDR. So we're all one species of human, as you'll notice. Around 70,000 years ago, there was a genetic bottleneck that really like cut down the different much diversity that we had, and we're all descendants of about 1,000 couples also that happened 70,000 years ago. So those couples came from that woman from 200,000 years ago, but only about 1,000 like mating pairs of humans are, all of us right now.
Okay.
So what happened and why is it like that? So I did do 23andMe, and what it does, one thing that it does is you can only get this DNA from a woman because it's like for the maternal haplogroup. So it's like your maternal DNA. So if you and your brother did 23andMe, you wouldn't be able to see your maternal line. Your mom would have to do it too. And like Kincaid did 23andMe and he couldn't see his maternal line until I did it because it's only in women.
What is?
The maternal DNA that like shows your family's like your genetic migration from the time that we lived in Africa 200,000 years ago. So I can trace my maternal haplogroup. It goes from Africa through the Middle East and then up into Europe, and then that's how we like got here.
Okay.
So it's like so long ago, but I can tell from my DNA that 47,000 years ago is when we my group of my history moved over to Europe.
Okay.
I can see that on this map that 23andMe gave me. So 70,000 years ago, after the Toba volcano, the only human species that survived were us and the Neanderthals. And they eventually died out, and we'll talk a little bit about maybe why. But just so we know, those are the only ones that existed. And so I wrote, we won. Yay. Anyway, people, welcome. So we're going to get to this volcano, I promise. But so, yes, this is the question. So how do we know anything about anything? That's one of my headers in my notes. Um, it's a lot of scientific research, a lot of accidents, a lot of people looking for different things and finding things at the same time that like reach the same conclusion. So we knew a little bit about like what species are and how we figured out about our own evolution, but that is so new. Like it's just unbelievably new that we know about DNA, that we know about like our genetic structure. Um, there's like hundreds of thousands of years between any changes like in evolution. So it's not like, one day you don't have a tail. It like takes a long time.
Yeah.
Like, oh, now we're walking upright. Now we don't need the tail for balance. Like now this and this. Um, we can also, so when we do this research and go back and start being able to date things, because we know more about DNA and we know more about like being able to date like different things like uranium and the things that we know about uh like the Earth, they're pulling up pieces of the core of like ice core and like Earth core, and they can pull it up and say, we can tell from this spot in this core that like 10,000 years ago, the weather was like this,
So crazy.
or things were like this. So we know that there's been ice ages. We know that there's been like times of like severe drought. We also can know that like the current climate change is our fault because there's never been climate change as bad as it is right now. And we know that because of these like cores that we're drilling out. There's a substance called uranium-238, and it is inside the glass in volcanic ash. So in 1994, a scientist was looking for more evidence of the same ash that he'd been seeing wherever he found it, and they found it all over the world. So it was in the bottom of the oceans, it's in India, it's in the Americas, it's everywhere, and it's from 70-ish thousand years ago, and it's from Mount Toba. So they can
Whoa.
tell by that like volcanic ash glass that it's all from the same event that happened relatively around the same time. So they're assuming that it was the same thing.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Okay. So then there's like that dating of like minerals and glass and ash. And oh God, I hope no scientists listen to this, but you know what I mean. And then there's also human DNA, which you learned about in school. What shape is DNA? I'm doing it
It's
for you.
the cricket thing.
It's a double
Ladder,
helix.
double helix.
Yeah, but you're right
Cricket
with
was
the
the
word
name of the
crick
guy.
because yes, because it's James Watson and Francis Crick. They're the ones
The
who
cricket
came up
guy.
with the theory of DNA. You're close. So Watson and Crick, they were working with a woman named Rosalind Franklin, and she was seeing the same things, discovering the same things about DNA that they were. They were like working side by side, and she was hesitant to publish because she didn't feel like it was fully ready to publish yet, Watson and Crick didn't give a shit, and they published anyway. And they bullied her out of the university they were working with, and she had to leave all of her research behind and go somewhere else where she would be like free to like study at her own pace. And she died at age 37 from cancer, probably from all the x-rays that she was like looking at in her scientific study. And they won the Nobel Prize, but she would have won it too if they would have let her be part of it.
No,
So,
they didn't
but
teach
yeah.
you that in school.
Nope. So stuff that we know, and again, kind of talking back to race. So they're able to see from DNA that like humans have very low genetic diversity. There are, very, very small things in our DNA that make us different at all. We share like 99% of our DNA with apes. Like we're so close to just like being back where we were. It's like all just like an accident or whatever, or that we got to where we are, but it's very little. It's not like huge differences between us. We There was like very recent changes after, humans started to move like out of Africa, people's skin color would change because they needed to absorb vitamin D in a way that you didn't need to when you're like on the equator, things like that that are like the reason that we're like any different at
Yeah,
all.
they're
Um,
adaptations. Like it's
yeah.
basically it.
Yeah. Another thing that I learned about like early humans, I don't know if I say this again, but I thought was interesting. Like one of the reasons that humans can run the way we can run is that we're built to outrun our prey. So like if we're chasing like a deer in like the savannah, we want the deer to get so tired that it passes out. And we can do that because we basically lost our hair, like our ape hair, so we could run faster. And we sweat, and other animals don't sweat. And the fact that we sweat means we can keep going. Technically, I definitely couldn't outrun a deer,
No.
but like you can technically keep going, and the deer has to stop and pant like a dog, like any animal, to cool down. And so they can't keep up as long as we can, theoretically.
Taylor, me and you are definitely in the gatherer class of hunter
I was
gatherers.
just
Like
gonna say,
we
I'll be like, I'm a vegetarian. I'm a vegetarian because this plant that has not ran away from me.
like I'm definitely not surviving.
100%. I mean, other things that helped us like survive is like being able to eat glucose because like a lot of other like most other animals cannot digest glucose and like we can, and that helped us become farmers and like stay where we were. But we've only been farmers for like 10,000 years. It's like not that long in like history of the world.
You know, what you just remind me of. It's I go on walks with Luna, and I mean, for people who don't know, Luna's like 100 pounds, like shepherd dog who's kind of dark, and man, she gets so tired so much faster than I do. When it comes to like spurts of energy, I could never come close to matching her. But for like longevity of energy, she gets
Hmm.
really tired, and I think it has to do with the sweating thing.
Yeah, I think it does too. Then she like can't, she needs to like really stop and like cool her body down. And we can do
Yeah,
it like actively, even though certainly never felt cooler when I was sweating. Also feels like weird, but I
yeah,
get it. I get technically what my body's trying to do. My body's being like, go inside. What are
yeah,
you
yeah.
doing?
Go have a strawberry.
Why are we doing this? This is stupid. Yeah. So also so because there's like we're so closely related, like we are more closely related to apes and chimpanzees via our DNA than like any species of frog is to each other. It's just like so unbelievably hard to wrap your head around like why these changes exist. Also, like a huge part of our DNA is just junk DNA, which is like stuff that like maybe we got, maybe somewhere in your DNA there's something that keeps you safe from a virus that was in Persia 5,000 years ago,
That
but like, you
you
don't need
don't
it
need.
anymore,
Yeah.
but it's still there, which I think is bananas. So, like, what do you mean it's junk DNA? DNA feels extraordinarily important.
But isn't
So,
that why there's some people who can like get um exposed to like HIV, for example, but like don't catch it? There's like something about that about how there's some people that are like weird genetic mutants that like can't contract the things that everybody else can.
yeah, there's like, so then, yeah, like when something weird happens in your code, that's when you do have, so every once in a while, there is a kid born with a tail, you know,
Yeah, yeah, makes
and,
sense.
or so, and stuff like
Or
that. So that's just
webbed
like,
hands or webbed feet or whatever.
yeah, yeah. Like, it's just like one little thing in there that like does it, which is really crazy. So, I'm thinking through like looking at like a map of like what people are. It's not like it's obviously not like a straight line. It's not like monkeys, cavemen, us. There's a whole bunch of branches, as it is with like every animal and every kind of animal. But essentially, there are animals that are in the same species. And so, if two individuals can breed and produce fertile offspring, they're of the same species. So, like dogs, they're different, but they can breed and have a baby that can have babies. So, they're the same species.
Wait, can a human fuck a chimpanzee?
Yes, but we're not gonna have a child. Human can fuck with
Uh,
anything, but you're not gonna have a child.
okay, hold on. So, okay, same species, different breeds works,
Yes.
but we don't have breeds, do we?
No, but we used to. That's what I'm going to tell you about.
Okay.
Yeah, which is crazy because I think I'm gonna maybe say this later, but like this is me overthinking everything. But sometimes I'm watching like a show with like cartoons, and it's like a cat and a dog and they're in love, and I'm like, yeah, but you can't have babies, or like where are you gonna live?
It's like
And
Flo's
then
like,
like
mom, please stop screaming at the TV.
yeah. And then also like I totally understand like having babies is not the reason to be in a relationship, but like I think that is the idea that there would be another human type that is not us that you could potentially like marry is so bananas. Not marry, but like whatever, you know what I mean? Like there were others, and I'll tell you about them because we're
Yeah, I
not
want
we're
to
not the
know.
first. Yeah. Um. So again, this is like
I thought about
so.
Googling different human breeds and was like, yeah, my computer's immediately going to get flagged by the FBI, so I'm just not going to do it.
I know. I was like everything. Also, I'm like, please don't this be racist. Like, I just want to tell the story. Like, but, but so I just like make sure that I'm like reading actual science, not accidentally someone who's like trying to make a point that's not good. But all of this is from like almost no evidence. They find like a jawbone in a cave, and like somehow they know that it was like this type of human. So I don't know. I don't understand that. It feels like archaeology is like paleontology, where like every time I go to a dinosaur museum, they're like, we thought this until yesterday, and now it's this,
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I mean, who knows? But we were at the Natural History Museum in New York City a couple weeks ago, and there was like one thing that had these arms, these like dinosaur arms that were like 10 feet long, and the sign was like unknown arms. Like, found these arms. We don't know who they belong to. Like, it's weird, right? You're like, yeah, it's weird. I want to know more. But like, they're just trying to figure it out like very slowly. So the oldest human-ish bone that they found is potentially from 6 million years ago. It was found in Chad. It's called the Tumai man. Um, some of the things that you start to see that start to like lean more towards being like more like a modern human is starting to walk upright and having a larger brain cavity. So like the walking upright came first, and then our brain cavities got bigger and bigger. There's a Arthropithecus. This is really hard from like 5 million years ago. There's Australopithecus. Oh, I'm so sorry. From 4 to 2 million years ago, and they were the first like hominins belonging to a genus that was like near ours. So they're a crucial step in human evolution. That's like Lucy. Have you heard of Lucy?
I
That
have.
like skeleton. So Lucy is astro. Oh God, I really thought I could do this. Australopithecus, whatever. Around, I'll write it down. So that's like 4 to 2 million years ago, starting to walk on two legs, a crucial step in evolution.
Wait,
So,
you said it
um,
was 6 million years ago?
yes, potentially the Tumai found in Chad. Did you find
Okay.
that one?
Well, I'm looking at
Tumai.
these don't go back 6 million years. They go back like hundreds of thousands of years. Oh, they're different. Oh, they're different
Well,
kinds. There's Homo. It's not Homo sapien. It's like Homo
yeah,
erectus and Homo
right.
whatever. It's all kinds of. Okay.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's what I mean. They're different species of like our what the next one is of humans, of the Homo us. So
Hominina. Hominina is the overarching category that we all fall under, I think.
yes,
Okay.
close enough. So there's some fossils from like 2.8, 2.3 million years ago, where we start to get into our genus. The Homo habilis is one of the first ones. They're the ones that had bigger brains and walked. And then we also, had to there's one from 2.3 million years ago. There's a Homo rodolphinus, and these all also have names. Like the name of the fossil from Homo rodolphinus from 2.3 million years ago is KNMER 1470.
Yeah,
It's
I
just
saw
like,
that too. Yeah, it's like
what
it's
is
like
this?
isotopes. Like,
Yeah, it's unbelievable. So it could be that the Homo rodolphus is a different species, or it could just be another of the Homo habilises. It's hard to tell. This is also like, I know that we talked about I was talking about like dinosaurs, but parents, there's a TV show called Dino Dana that is so fun. And so Dana Dana is like a little girl who can see dinosaurs. Like she's a delight, and it's very like learn a ton. But the Dana Dana movie, the question they're asking is, why aren't there any kid dinosaurs? Like, why don't you find children dinosaurs? And the answer is that some of the dinosaurs that we think are different dinosaurs are actually the children of bigger dinosaurs. You
yeah,
know?
makes sense.
So it's not that not two different species, it's like just a child. So some of the things that we're finding, they're very specific. Like the idea that a Neanderthal is like a hunched over like man is because the first one we found was an old man who had rickets. So like take a skeleton from like one of the worst of us and say that's what humans look like, you
Yeah,
know?
makes sense.
So we just don't know. Um, the Homo erectus, those are ones that you may have heard of, like the Java man and the Peking man, like found around the world. That's from like 1.9 million years ago. And there's also been hoaxes. So once people started to say like, we are descendants from these different Homo species, and they're from the species of like apes, then people would like buy an ape skull, take the jaw off, put human teeth on it, and try to sell it to a museum.
It's pretty smart, actually. That's kind of that's an entrepreneur right there.
So a lot of that happened in the beginning. Like in the beginning, I mean like 100 years ago. It's not even new. Um, in 1.9 million years ago in Africa, Homo erectus is the one you think about like standing up the tallest, went further with tools. They have bigger brains. That's the Java man and the Peking man or Homo erectus. There's evidence that they like had art. They were the only Homo sapiens on Earth for a while, or the Homo species on Earth, the Homo erectus, for
Yeah,
longer than we were, longer than us. Like they
yeah,
lasted longer than we did so far.
that's the convergence. That's like where like
Hmm.
everything. I'm looking at this like amazing genealogy map, and
That's what I'm
yeah,
saying. It's so much. Yeah.
it's a lot. Like this is like
Yes.
somebody has probably spent their entire life just researching like one aspect of one of these things.
100%. So now we get to Homo sapiens. Um, it's like Homo antecessor. That's where we come from. There are offshoots, just like in anything else. There are others that are just like one jaw, so you just don't know. But it's potentially the ancestor of everyone. We're Homo sapiens. Neanderthals are in the group Homo, but a distinct species that happen at the same time. So for a while, we thought that they were totally separate, but we're not sure. It's definitely a distinct side quest. And but Neanderthals, they definitely were healthy. They cared for each other. They were artistic. They used tools. In my 23andMe DNA, I have more Neanderthal DNA than 70% of the population, 77% of the population. I have a little bit less than 2% Neanderthal DNA.
Wow. So
And
wait,
the
wait,
reason
hold
that I
on. That
do,
means that we enter. Oh, yeah, because we're the same. We're different breeds of the same
yep,
species.
yep.
Wow.
Hmm. So you can mate with a Neanderthal and have a child, and that child can have children, which is how you get Neanderthal DNA into the DNA of most humans, unless you can trace your line all the way into Africa that you've never left Africa, then you don't have it, but everybody else does. And also, this has to
Wow.
do with the Toba as well. So there's a couple other Um, oh, like one question is like, why did the Neanderthals go extinct? It could be because they just got like absorbed into the Homo sapien population. It could be because they were a little bit violent. It could be one of the reasons they think maybe it's because Homo sapiens were able to get domesticate dogs and have dogs help them hunt, and Neanderthals didn't do that, so we got all the food. So there's like a bunch of different theories as why Neanderthals don't exist anymore, and that we're the only species of Homo sapien out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's saying that 20% of Neanderthal genes have survived in our DNA.
Yeah.
Seems like a
So
lot.
somewhere in
So that
there.
was a
I'm
lot
trying
of.
to
I'm saying that it's like a lot of overlap. It was just, more
Yes.
than I would have
Which I
assumed.
think, which is crazy, which is what I think is crazy that there's, you could be like, I know, like now, you know, racists are like, we're all so different. And you're like, actually, we're not. But if there was actually a different species of human, that'd be crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
But there aren't.
It's interesting because it breaks it. If you look at the Wikipedia for Neanderthals and interbreeding with modern humans, it talks about the differences in terms of like geography and the
Hmm.
density of the average person Neanderthal. So Eurasians, it says 3.4 to 7.9% is Neanderthal DNA, and there's variations in every part of the
Hmm.
world. So like some places like to fuck Neanderthals more than others, I guess. I don't. I mean,
Well, I think it's because they were there more, because they were in the cold areas.
oh, there
So
you go.
they were up in like they're up in Europe, they're up in like northern Asia where it's cold.
Yep,
And
yep,
that's
that makes
why
sense.
there were not Neanderthals in Africa because it was too hot for them. So they were up in other places.
Yeah, it
And it
says
wasn't
that.
like a day. It wasn't like they were like, this is too hot for me, let's move. It was like, generations of migrating and like moving around.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
So there's other things, and again, this is like it's wild because they're gonna find something new tomorrow. Like who knows? In 2010, someone found a 41,000-year-old finger bone of a child, that could be another branch from 600 up to 600,000 years ago called the Denisovian. It isn't Homo sapien or Neanderthal, so it might be something else. So they found there could be a third one that we don't know about that lasted longer. In 2003, there's evidence of like a group of people in the island of Flores, like in like Indonesia, that are descended from H. erectus, but they're like off the shoot of Homo sapiens, but they were also very small. So they like literally call them hobbits. They would have been about 3.7 inches tall,
What?
because they were like
Feet or
isolated.
inches?
That feet.
Okay.
Oh my God, sorry. Feet. Um, Jesus, that would have been awesome.
That
They're
would have been awesome.
3.7 feet tall, so they're like little because they all lived on an island where there was like not a lot of diversity in like their food, and they didn't have to be that big. So again, over hundred thousands of years, but there's another one as well. So there's who knows what else they're going to find. They're going to find all sorts of stuff as they continue to like be able to search and date these things. Okay, so quick side chat about volcanoes. Do you know how a volcano works?
It is a capped mountain with a hollow cavity in the center that is connected to the I forgot which part of the core it is, but it's somehow connected to the center of the Earth. And there's a magma chamber, and when it builds up with too much pressure, it explodes at the top.
Yes, pretty close. It's the tectonic plates in the world moving, and then sometimes they, obviously like they hit each other and we get earthquakes. Sometimes if they push up against each other, you get kind of like a weak spot that is like a essentially like a tiny crack in the magma and in the Earth's structure, and that is what a volcano is. So inside the Earth, there's the magma. When the pressure builds up because the plates are moving, the magma wants to escape, so it pushes up. It finds a weak spot, which is a volcano, and it'll push up and it will do a couple things. It'll do lava, which is like you've seen some volcanoes are like the ones you see in Hawaii, which are like really slow moving lava coming down, off the side of the mountain. You'll see those are like on the scale. It's like the Richter scale where like the difference between 1 and 3 is huge. It's the
Yeah,
same idea. So like a volcano in Hawaii would be like a 0 or a 1 on the scale, because it's just like kind of like slowly moving. Definitely dangerous and scary, but like not a huge thing. And the ones that are huge, like Krakatoa, like the ones that you like went across the world, those are like a 4, where you can like see it across the whole entire world. Toba
yeah.
was like a 10. So this one's like this is the biggest volcano they think in the history of the world, the Toba volcano. Um, so another thing that happens with volcanoes is it's not just like lava spreading everywhere. The big problem is actually the ash. So the volcanic ash shoots up into the air like miles, and then the wind just takes it, and that's when it can like cover the earth because the wind is like taking these like miles of ash kind of all over the whole world. And volcanic ash is also very, very heavy. So like it's not like being if you think of you think of ash as being like really light because it's ash, it's in the air. But volcanic ash is heavy and it's dense. So like during like when the Toba volcano, I'll tell you this in a second, it exploded in Indonesia, it covered India with like a foot of ash
Wow.
because it's like and it like hardens and turns into rock. It can also like help the soil. Like it can be like it's a nutrient dense, but it also, kills you and it's hot as balls. Um, do you remember when that volcano exploded in New Zealand in
Yeah.
2019 when people were on vacation?
Yeah.
So there's a woman named it wasn't lava, it was like the ash that hit the people. There's a woman named Stephanie Browett. Her father and her sister died in New Zealand's North Island, but she survived with such severe burns. There's a photo of her that she shared in the hospital of her back, and it looks like a anatomical model of muscles because all of her skin is gone.
What's her
It's
name?
crazy. Stephanie Browett, Browitt. So she's a survivor of a volcano, but just like that's like one of some of the terrible things that it does to you.
Wow. Oh
So
God.
besides obviously, yeah, do you know what I mean? Like it's just like
Ugh.
it's not like a little the ash isn't just like, oh, so there's some ash floating. The ash is incredibly hot. It's what boils your brain. It's what kills you. Like that's a huge thing.
So
So
that's what this
obviously,
woman Stephanie got hit with was the ash, not actual like lava.
hmm
Well, I guess if lava hits you, it just melts you immediately.
yeah, you can't even get close to lava. You know how like in movies people are like hanging over lava? If you're like within 10 feet of lava, you catch on fire. And
Yeah,
probably less than that. It's
probably
like
less
hot.
than that.
It's not a joke. Yeah. Um, so that's how a volcano works. Mostly is the ash. It's the biggest problem because that is what can travel across like the entire globe. So now it is 74,000 years ago, and most species are gone. There are the Neanderthals in Europe. There's a Homo sapiens in Africa and Eurasia that's just starting to move out of Africa. There are those hobbits in Flores, and there's also some H. erectus in Eurasia. But really quickly, the hobbits and the H. erectus are gone after the Toba volcano. So how do we know this happened 74,000 years ago? In the 1990s, people started to have different ideas, and they're finding things in rocks and fossils and DNA that all pointed to the same thing, a genetic bottleneck 74,000 years ago that means a lot of different things came from a small survivor population. So that's like most of the Homo sapiens are wiped out, and a small population, that 1,000 couples, are the ones that we are all descendant from. So something must have happened, and so all of anything that was going to make us diverse in different areas was gone, and we were just like one small survivor population. They also see the same thing that happened in pandas and tigers, all at the exact same time when
Well, wait,
they
these were
like
Homo sapiens, 1,000? Okay.
yeah, yes. And that's where we're all descended from is those people. And the there's other like microorganisms that have the same thing. In the book I was reading, like there's probably so many other animals that have the same genetic bottleneck, but we know about tigers and pandas because they're cute.
Yeah, makes sense.
But like there's probably some ugly animals that similarly. Um, so the Neanderthals are in Eurasia and Europe. Homo sapiens are starting to spread out of Africa. There's large animals as well, which are like which I think is so fun. I mean, you like learn about like giant bears and giant sloths and like just giant animals. Super fun. But they're all gonna go pretty soon. So there's this volcano near Sumatra, which is the Toba volcano. Also, reminder, Sumatra is where Van Gogh was supposed to go to do his military service, but they paid someone else to go.
Nice
So
throwback.
bring it back. So it when the day that the Mount Toba volcano exploded, we will never know like what day it was or like exactly what happened. But ash and pumice have started to roll out of the top of the volcano. So this is starting to happen. Then when it actually explodes and is an explosion, so Krakatoa that we'll talk about later in our series is like the one that a lot of people have heard about. That was the one like the 1880s. When that happened, a sonic boom went around the Earth 7 times. So
Wow.
like people heard it everywhere, like it was the loudest thing anyone's ever recorded or anyone has ever heard. Mount Toba was 1,000 times more powerful than that.
That's crazy.
So nothing in the world escaped hearing it. It the once the ash plume went about and like the mushroom cloud and all this stuff came out about 200 miles per hour, and it went like 6 miles up into the air. The pumice and ash from Mount Toba covered about 15 million square miles, which is 14% of the Earth. So it was everywhere. 6 inches of ash covered all of Asia. 10 inches covered all of India. So it also would have like mixed with dirt and created mudslides. There was most likely a tsunami, probably several tsunamis that like destroyed people where people were living immediately. Like anything on any coast near it was probably destroyed almost immediately. The ash is coming up is actually sulfuric acid and sulfur dioxide. So like it's not breathable. It's like ruining, the air. Everything in the air is dying. It's also covering the sun. So that's what happened in The Year Without a Summer with Mary Shelley. That's what happened with Krakatoa is like it covers the sun, and then you have a huge cooling event and the weather patterns change and a lot of life dies. The sunlight's blocked, things can't grow, everything dies. They hypothesize that global temperatures decreased anywhere from 1 to 9 degrees. So it's like a huge decrease, like tons of things don't survive. The tree line fell. Things would have frozen. We do know that there was an ice age at this time. This is probably why that like an ice age started because of this. So what was left after this happened. We have those 1,000 breeding pairs of people trying to survive. Between the eruption of Mount Toba, there was like a 1,000-year ice age, and then there was a from 74,000 years ago to 17,000 years ago, it was generally cold. That's when all of the large megafauna animals died, and people started to just kind of move their small groups out into Europe. Some stayed in Africa, obviously, but people kind of coming from that small group of people. Another thing about another like genetic bottleneck that I thought was really fun is hamsters. Hamsters,
Yes.
the cute little pet. All hamsters that you have as a pet come from the same group of hamsters that was found in 1930 in Syria. It was like a a um a wild animal, and some dude was like, I'm gonna go find a golden hamster, found a little group of them. They all died out in the wilds eventually, and every hamster in existence in someone's cage is from that same family.
Aw, it's kind of
So
cute.
that
That
should
makes them
yeah,
cuter.
so that it does make them really cute. So that genetic bottleneck is because of that group that was like taken away from any like bad things and put into like safely. Now they just like breed like hamsters.
Yeah.
So after the Mount Toba collapsed or erupted, everybody who survived, which was like a very small amount of people, they survived because, they were able to find ways to like get food in other places that weren't able to. And they were able to go out and then like, populate the whole rest of the world. So this is a theory because it's 74,000 years old. So like I said, like they learned about DNA in 1960. We haven't even known for 100 years and how fast things are changing and how fast we're learning. Like we might know more tomorrow, we might know more in a year. Like some people think that maybe it was something else that caused this ice age, but a lot of the evidence points to Mount Toba erupting because of like, the ash and the glass and the ash and the uranium and the things that we can like carbon date back there. And we don't have Homo sapiens don't differ after that. It's when we like came out and like started to really like become who we think we are today. There's really good evidence that it's true. There's other mass extinctions. Obviously, like the dinosaurs went extinct. That was probably a meteor, but other kinds of dinosaurs might have gone extinct because of volcanoes. So there's all sorts of things that like we don't know, but it could have been because of these. Because when a volcano erupts, it's like not just isolated, it can affect the whole world. I did not add to my list the one in Iceland because I absolutely cannot say that one. But do you remember when that happened?
Yes. There's a
A couple years
Netflix
ago?
special on it. Yeah.
Is there? I remember seeing things with just like American news trying to pronounce it, and it was just like the best because fuck, you can't pronounce any any Icelandic words, but it's really fun. Um, so the book that I read, the When Humans Nearly Vanished, like, the stress is that, we all come from the same group of people because we were hardy, because we were able to like get out of this, and then we started to move around. So we're all so similar genetically. It's just really just like such small differences between, anyone of any race. Like that's something that we shouldn't even like consider when we're talking about people, because people are also so brand new, and there used to be like other types of people, and there used to be other things, and there's so much. I mean, the whole world, we don't know anything that happened until so unbelievably recently. Um, but like there will be other volcanoes. We'll talk about what might happen in the future later. But you probably won't die in a mass extinction event. Like you probably won't die in like a San Andreas type California coming off the side of the thing. You probably won't die when Yellowstone finally erupts. That probably will happen, in a long time. People don't really die from these things, but to get a smidge political, the things people are dying from is heat and cold. So more people die of overheating in their homes than of any other natural disaster, because unless there's like a big event like a tsunami, but like mostly it's people not being able to adapt to the current climate change that's killing people. But there have been some volcanoes that we have erupted where we actually know what happens because we have firsthand experiences. So the next one I do is Mount Vesuvius, and we have like a firsthand account from Pliny the Younger of what happened, and we'll talk about that, and then talk about what it looks like in Pompeii and what happened to those people next time I get back to volcanoes.
Taylor, just as a real quick synopsis, am I gonna die because of Yellowstone?
No, you're gonna die because of like it's gonna be too hot to live.
I don't think I'm gonna die of that. I think I'm
But like
probably gonna die of.
you're more likely to die because it's impossible to be outside at all in America
It
than
is. Right now, it is
elsewhere.
actually legitimately. My dog hates my guts because it's like, why are you keeping me in the house? Like, I can't take you outside. Like, you will die
It's too
of
hot.
overheat.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know what was it in The Day After Tomorrow. What was that? What was that? Was that a volcano? Do you
the
remember
day
that movie
after
with Jake
tomorrow.
Gyllenhaal?
No,
Yeah,
the day after tomorrow, it was an ice age, right?
but how did it happen so fast?
Oh
Hold
God,
on,
that I don't know.
science fiction. I'm so sorry, everyone. Um, Coming global superstorm. It's extreme weather events and climate change. I don't know. I don't know how it happened in one day.
Do you know that NASA came up with a plan on how to prevent Yellowstone from exploding?
Did they? Good, because it does scare me. Because I have seen those like images of like Yellowstone exploding, and just like 2 seconds later, all of America is covered in ash, and then it's like Canada's gone, Mexico's gone, the ash plumes everywhere.
In terms of large explosions, Yellowstone experienced three at two, 1.3, and half a million years ago.
I mean, it's like that, and like the big earthquake. Like they're like it could happen in 1,000 years, or it could happen tomorrow. You're like, God damn it.
I mean, listen, I when I was living in LA, I actually thought about that. Like, I mean, you remember there were times when you'd wake up and your bed was like in the middle of the room because you were going through an earth. I mean, my first earthquake, and it was at your friend's place. Remember the guy that
Hmm.
I mean his apartment or something, I subleased from him. And the first time I experienced it, I was like, what the fuck is it? Was terrifying. It was absolutely
It's so
terrifying.
confusing. It's confusing because you're like, I know what I should do in an earthquake right now when I'm not actively having one. But when one happens, you need someone to confirm it's an earthquake. So you otherwise you're like, am I going crazy?
You think a
You know?
car's run into a building because it just feels
Yeah.
so off.
It's so loud too. Like the building, like at least in the couple times that I've been in one, like the building shakes in a way that you're like, huh?
And
Like
then
that's weird.
the other thing that comes to your mind is you're like, is this going to be that big one? Like, should I be
Yeah.
panicked right now? Because you're so clutched with like terror in the moment and confusion. So
Hmm. My mom was like, the other day, she was like, I love the movie San Andreas. I watch it all the time. And I was like, I can't watch it that much
I'm
because
living
it
it.
scares me. I was like, but I
Yeah.
understand, The Rock is very handsome in it. I get it. Like, it's also very scary. Yeah, so okay. So that is the Toba catastrophe theory that 74,000 years ago, a big volcano exploded, changed who humans are because so many different types of human species died out that just a small group survived, and that turned into us. We are all related. The Earth is terrifying. Let's take good care of it before it kills us because it's 100% going to kill us.
And clear this. We should be racist or we should not be racist?
You should not be
Not be
racist.
racist. Okay.
Race
Okay.
is brand new. We're all people. Come on, you nerds.
We're all
Yeah, so
people.
some of the stuff, like I said, there's some hoaxes. Like some of the hoaxes are like, people like when they're finding this stuff out and like finding these Homo sapiens in Africa to prove that like we're all from the same woman in Africa, however many, hundreds of thousands of years ago, people in Europe are pissed. Like the Nazis were pissed. They were like, "There's no way that the first human came from Africa," and then they're like, "He must have come from here," and they like really wanted humans to have come from Europe, and like they just didn't. Get over it.
That was one good thing about Oppenheimer was it brought up the fact that the Nazis didn't believe in like actual physics because real physics was mostly created by like Jewish people. Like all the best
Yeah,
physicists in the world were Jewish, and they were like,
those
that's
nerds.
their racism prevented them from being successful and being good racists. Like it was like the most ironic thing ever.
Oh my God, they just handed Einstein to us.
Exactly,
He was the
exactly.
smartest guy ever, and
Yeah,
you just gave him to us.
yeah.
Um, yeah, totally. Yeah, so all that is it's just so new and it's so interesting, and fun. So, diversity is fun, but we're all people.
We're all people. This is good. This is a really creative concept, Taylor. Like you're like
Thanks.
throwing me for a loop here. It's making me realize I got to step my game up. But I really
I'm
love
excited.
this story, and I'm excited about the next one and the next one after that, and all 7 parts. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. It'll be in no particular timeline, but you know. But yeah, also, have you been to Pompeii?
No.
I have. It was fun. I'll talk more about it. That's cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll do it.
Awesome.
Folks, remember, write to us at doomedtofailpod@gmail.com. We'd love to hear people's feedback. And thank you for listening and share with your friends.
Yeah, please share. Find us Doom to Fail Pod everywhere that you listen to podcasts and see things. I'm so sorry. I have one more thing to share. Art Bell wrote The Day After Tomorrow,
Oh,
and
really?
hi yes, and his Wikipedia picture, he's smoking a cigarette and wearing a turtleneck, and it's pretty awesome. Pretty fun.
He does look very cool.
That's all. Cool. Thanks, Fars.
Sweet.
Thanks,
Thanks
everyone.
all. Bye.